Hi everyone, this is Nikki Rowland and today I have a layout to share for simple stories using the Colour Vibes Darks collection. Colour Vibes come in all different colours, but they have been separated out into different collections that work together. So you may have recently seen the Boho collection, and there's also the wood grains. There's things like lights and summer and all different themes, and this one is the Darks, which has recently been released, and in Colour Vibes you can get papers, 12 by 12 papers, you can get 6 by 8 paper pads, and then you can get these beautiful florals. So let me just talk you through what I've been doing so far. So I've cut I love to feature all of the colours on one layout if I can. So I have taken all of the colours of the 12 by 12 papers that I have, and I have cut a small strip, probably inch and a half, of each one, and then a very wide piece of the dark purple, which is very beautiful. I'm sticking that bit at the top. I actually had it quite wide to begin with, but actually I have cut it down a bit there, and then I'm just going to layer each one of the strips underneath the next one. I've distressed the edges, of course, of each one. I'm just getting those layered up, and I'm interested in kind of having them look a bit wonky is probably the wrong word, narrow at some parts and wider at other parts, but still having them all on display. So they didn't have to be exactly perfectly straight. I was more than happy to have a few angles going on. I was trying to achieve that. Not sure I actually managed it particularly well. It's not very, very obvious, but there are definitely wider parts of some than others. So there we go. It's looking quite nice. I'm happy with how those layers are looking, and that is going to be the top part of my layout. You can see that I'm just distressing the edges a little bit further with my fingernails there. I was thinking about putting some foam pads in to give them some additional dimension, but actually I don't think they need it. And the other difficulty is that I'm planning to stick my photos over some of the layers, so therefore having less different levels is beneficial. Right, so I have my background sorted. I have my 3 photos, and I'm now looking at what florals that I can use. So I've emptied out the whole pack of the Darks florals there, and I'm just starting to layer them together ready. So I'm taking the big flowers and I'm distressing them slightly by pinching them, and just kind of scrunching them up a little bit, because at the moment they're very, very flat, and I feel that flowers are not flat in nature, so I felt they needed to have a bit of dimension. So I've just scrunched them and curled them up a bit, and then I'm sticking them, I'm layering them on top of each other so that we get these multi-layered flowers. So I'm just now currently working out what I can do. I'm happy with my photos in that kind of stepped look. That wasn't intentional, it just kind of happened, and then I really liked it. So I'm going to go with that, and then I'm going to follow that line, that diagonal line, down with the florals. So again, this wasn't what I had in mind when I first started making this layout, but it's funny how things and ideas evolve as they go along, and the final layout looks very different to what I had initially thought I would do. But that's okay. Right, so I want to make some smaller flowers as well, so I'm just layering those together as well. So I've picked the smallest ones and the next size up and layered those together, and then I put those in the middle of all of my big flowers. So actually each flower has 5 layers, so they're really dimensional, really, really lovely. And lots and lots of interest, all different shapes. I think they work super well. So I'm very happy with how that is all coming together, and I liking the diagonal look there. It's all, well, say it wasn't intended, but I'm liking how it's looking. I felt that my photos needed a border of some description. I wasn't quite sure whether I needed to mount them or not, because they're very white, and then they're going against a dark background, so they would stand out obviously really, really well, but as I'd got them just plain on the layout, I just felt that they needed something extra. So I had a bit of leftover of the dark blue paper from the Darks collection that I'd had left over from a previous layout. So I just used that to mount my 3 photos. I actually trimmed down my 2 smaller photos a little bit in width in order to get them to fit on that offcut of that paper that I had left over. So it was perfect once I'd trimmed them down slightly. And then I've distressed the edges of those as well, of course, because that's what I do. And now I'm ready to get things kind of stuck in place. And then I can just embellish that big cluster further. Once my photos are in place, I can get my flowers stuck. And then, yeah, I can continue with building onto that cluster, which is pretty huge and will be the only kind of embellishment cluster on the layout. So yeah. Okay, that's all my photos and all my flowers stuck in place. You can see that I've also added some leaves. Now in the florals pack, there are lots and lots of leaves as well. So I've just poked those into all the flowers. Again, I have pinched them slightly so they have a bit more dimension. I've raised some on foam pads. I've stuck some flat, I've curled some up. And I've also pulled out a few of the other florals and poked those under the layers on the left side of my photos. So just to give something extra to those areas. I've got some on the right hand side as well, actually. I haven't specifically done them tone on tone or colour on colour. I just felt that because this layout is got the main focus of this layout is that big cluster along the photos. I just thought that the rest of the layout needed something on it as well. So yeah. So that's why I did that. I've just added a load of enamel dots to my flowers. I've put them in the gaps between the leaves. I've put them in the middle of all the flowers. And now I'm looking through the chipboard pack to see what else I can add to this layout. So I've got some hearts that I've pulled out and I'm just arranging those around the photos and at the bottom there as well, but also on top of the flowers too. I'm going to move those in a moment. Those ones I've just, yeah, there we go. They're just going on to the flowers themselves because I'm hoping to add a title along there as well. So I end up doing a few different things, but yeah, in the end, the title does go along that big diagonal too. I was just pulled out some of the colour on colour flowers that I had left over in the flower pack and put them on the background. I just wanted to see if that would work to make the background a bit more interesting because these papers are quite plain. I've chosen the patterned ones because you have plain on one side and you have dotty on the other side. I love the dots. So I've chosen all dots, but this papers are still very solid. So I just thought that it might give a bit of interest if I was to add some other shapes to the background. But actually in the end, I decided not to do that. It didn't quite work. And I even thought that I could distress the edges maybe and get them to all fold up too. But again, I just wasn't overly happy. So they all end up coming off in a moment. Just getting my heart stuck in place. I'm pretty happy with how those are looking. The chipboards are really easy to work with. They are quite thin chipboard rather than very, very thick. I either stick those with glossy accents or I use foam pads to stick them down. They're not sticky, they're just plain chipboard, so you need to add your own adhesive. And that's my adhesive of choice. So here's me experimenting with that background. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, if I'm happy, and no, the answer is no, I'm not happy, so I've removed those from the background. So I'm just going to get my photos stuck down completely. Sometimes I stick the bottom edges and I don't stick the top. I then, just in case I want to tuck anything under it. So then once I'm happy with everything, then I add the foam pads behind the photo. So that's what I've done there. I've got a little banner there at the top of my right-hand photo. So yeah, just that's all coming together. So now is title time. So I've reached for these beautiful wood grain alphas. These are also Colour Vibe, but they are the Woods collection. So I've reached for those. I love the white wood grain and it looks lovely in contrast to the dark papers that I've used on this layout. And I was thinking of the word beautiful and I was thinking along that line. But it started off okay, nestled into those flowers, but then I just didn't really like it over on the right hand side with that big gap between them and the flowers. So I decided to go a bit crazy and go on the diagonal with the title. Not something I would normally do, but actually I quite like it. Yeah, I'm happy that it sits along the same line. It keeps the angles and the layout the same. And I love the letters nestled in the flowers. So that all works really well for me. So all good. I'm just going to write a little bit of journaling under my title there, just a very small amount, just a few lines there with a black journaling pen. And then I just need to finish off with some black paint splatters. I could have used white because it would have shown up really well against the dark colours, but I just felt that the black was more in keeping, especially as she's wearing a black dress and she's all kind of glammed up. I just think these colours are really glamorous and really lovely. They just scream of a night out. So therefore that was what I went for. So I'm just going for black paint splatters all over the florals and just a little bit of extension top and bottom of the diagonal as well. And there we go, that is my layout complete. So I hope that you have enjoyed seeing this layout come together. It was a little tricky to photograph and get the colours right, so I'm sorry that my colours aren't perfect, but they're beautiful colours, really, really lovely, perfect for a glamorous night out. Yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. That was Nikki Rowland for Simple Stories using Colour Vibe Darks.